The last thing I remember before the darkness took me was James Bennett's face, wearing an expression I'd never seen before. Was it concern? Fear? Or something else entirely? I couldn't tell because my vision was already blurring, my legs giving out as I collapsed in our company's parking garage. I'm Diana Mitchell, co-founder of Artemis Biotech, and that moment in the parking garage was the last time I would see my business partner and trusted friend for 3 months. 3 months during which he would try to steal everything we built together. The day had started normally enough. James and I were preparing for a crucial board meeting about our breakthrough cancer treatment delivery system. 5 years of research, countless sleepless nights, and our entire life savings had gone into developing this technology. We were weeks away from final FDA approval. The Morgan Group is getting nervous, James had said during our morning coffee ritual. They think the approval process is taking too long. They knew the timeline when they invested, I replied, reviewing our presentation materials. Besides, the preliminary results are exceeding expectations. James had nodded, but something in his expression should have warned me. I'd known him since our days at Stanford Medical School. He was brilliant but always impatient, always looking for shortcuts. What if we explored other options? He suggested. Maybe sell to one of the major pharmaceuticals before approval, and let them control the distribution. I shook my head. That's not why we started this company. We want this treatment to be accessible, not locked behind corporate profits. He'd gone quiet then, that familiar crease between his eyebrows that appeared when he was plotting something. But I was too focused on our upcoming presentation to notice. The headache started around noon. By 2, my vision was blurring. By 4, as I walked to my car to get my backup presentation materials, everything went black. I woke up 3 months later in the intensive care unit at Seattle General. A rare brain aneurysm, they told me. I'd been in a coma for 12 weeks. But as I lay there, trying to piece together what had happened, something felt wrong. Your business partner visited a few times, the nurse mentioned casually. In the beginning, said you've been under a lot of stress with the company. I tried to reach for my phone, but my muscles were too weak from months of inactivity. Can you look up Artemis Biotech for me? Please? The nurse pulled out her phone, and I watched her face change as she read. Oh, it says here the company was acquired by Bennett Pharmaceuticals 3 months ago. The founder, James Bennett, consolidated ownership after his partner, after you apparently resigned due to health concerns. The monitors tracking my heart rate spiked. Resigned? Consolidated ownership? My mind raced back to our last conversation, to the thumb drive I always wore on a chain around my neck. The one that contained recordings of all our major meetings, a habit I developed after losing crucial notes years ago. My necklace, I croaked. From my personal effects. Please. The nurse found it in the hospital safe, along with my other belongings. With shaking hands, I clutched the small drive. James didn't know about this. He couldn't know that I recorded everything, including our last conversation of selling the company. But I was too weak to do anything about it yet. The doctors said I needed at least 2 more weeks of recovery before they'd release me. 2 weeks during which I had to pretend to be more incapacitated than I was, because I knew James would be watching. I was right. He visited the next day, all concerned smiles and gentle condolences. Diana, thank God you're awake, he said, sitting beside my bed. We were all so worried. I feigned greater weakness than I felt, keeping my eyes half closed. The company, what happened? Don't worry about that now, he soothed. Focus on getting better. I had to make some hard decisions while you were unavailable. But it was all for the best. Through my half-closed eyes, I saw that expression again, the one from the parking garage. Now I recognized it, calculation. The treatment, I whispered, is being developed on schedule, he assured me. Under proper corporate oversight now, Bennett Pharmaceuticals has the resources to bring it to market efficiently. Translation. They would control the pricing, the distribution, everything we have fought to prevent. You should rest, he said, standing. I'll have the lawyers send over some paperwork for you to sign once you're stronger. Just finalizing the transfer of your shares, making everything official. I let my eyes close fully, listening to his footsteps retreat. In my hand, hidden under the blanket, I clutched the thumb drive containing his true intentions. That night, using the nurse's phone, I sent a text to Maria Santos, my old friend from law school. Need help. Hospital. Come alone. Tell no one. Maria arrived the next morning, her lawyer face on until she saw me. Then she burst into tears. "My God, Diana, we thought you were dying," James told everyone. "I bet he did," I said grimly. "Listen carefully. I need you to do something for me, and no one can know, especially not James." I handed her the thumb drive and whispered my instructions. Her eyes widened as she listened. "He really didn't know you record everything?" she asked. "A habit he used to tease me about," I smiled weakly. "Called me paranoid for keeping such detailed records." "How long have you been doing this?" "Since the day we founded Artemis. Every major meeting, every significant conversation, including the one where he explicitly agreed never to sell or transfer ownership without mutual consent." Maria's legal mind was already working. The transfer would be invalid. He had no authority. "But he did it anyway," I said. "Used my medical crisis to steal everything. And now he's going to learn why you should never betray someone who keeps receipts." Over the next week, I focused on recovery while Maria quietly gathered intelligence. James had moved fast during my coma, using his family name and connections to push through the ownership transfer. He told our investors I had resigned for health reasons, that I'd agreed to sell my shares before my collapse. But he'd made one crucial mistake. In his rush to seize control, he'd violated dozens of clauses in our operating agreement, all of which I had documented evidence to prove. "The board is meeting next Thursday," Maria reported during one of her visits. "Final approval of the acquisition structure. James is consolidating his power base." "Perfect. That gives us a week to prepare my return." "Diana," Maria hesitated. "Are you sure you're strong enough?" I pushed myself up in the bed, muscles screaming but determination burning. I didn't spend 5 years of my life developing a treatment to help people just to watch him turn it into another profit machine. "I'm not just going to return, I'm going to take everything back." She nodded, understanding the look in my eyes. "I'll set everything in motion. Just promise me one thing." "What?" "When you walk into that boardroom, make sure I'm there to see his face." I smiled, feeling stronger by the minute. "Oh, don't worry. Everyone's going to want to see his face when he realizes what I've got on that thumb drive." James had no idea what was coming. He thought he'd stolen my company while I was fighting for my life. He was about to learn that some battles don't end just because one side is temporarily down. I spent the next few days preparing for war, disguising my recovery progress from the nurses I couldn't trust. Knowing James probably had people watching, every moment of weakness had to look real, every setback convincing. Because next Thursday, I wasn't going to walk into that boardroom as a victim. I was going to walk in as an avenging angel armed with irrefutable proof of his betrayal. And James Bennett was about to learn why you should never underestimate a partner who keeps records of everything, especially one you've left for dead. 3 days before the board meeting, I checked myself out of the hospital against medical advice. The doctors protested, but I had more important medicine to administer, the kind that cures betrayal. Maria had secured a suite at the Four Seasons under her law firm's name. James's people would be watching my house, expecting me to still be in the hospital. We needed complete privacy for what was coming next. The thumb drive contained even more than we hoped, Maria said, spreading documents across the hotel room's desk. "Not just the conversation about never selling, but evidence of his preparations before your accident." I leaned forward, muscles still protesting but mind sharp. "What kind of preparations?" She pulled up an audio file on her laptop. James's voice filled the room, speaking to someone 2 weeks before my collapse. "The FDA approval is taking too long. Diana won't budge on selling, but there might be another way. I've already talked to my father's pharmaceutical company." I felt ice in my veins. "The date on this?" 2 weeks before your aneurysm," Maria confirmed. "And there's more. We found emails to a doctor at Seattle General asking about the statistical likelihood of aneurysms in people your age, particularly under stress." The implications made my hands shake. He didn't just take advantage of my condition. He was counting on it. "We can't prove he caused your aneurysm," Maria cautioned. "But we can prove he was planning this takeover before you got sick. That alone violates at least 15 clauses in your partnership agreement." My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah Wong, our former head of research who had quit the day after James announced the acquisition. "Boss, please tell me you're really alive and fighting back. The new protocols they're implementing. They're changing everything we built. I responded quickly. Very much alive. How would you like your old job back? Her reply was instant. When and where? I've got dozens of emails documenting the changes they're making to the treatment protocols. They're going to price it out of reach for most patients. Exactly what we had fought to prevent. I forwarded her message to Maria. Another witness. Maria nodded. But we need more. The board members who approved the transfer. They were lied to. I finished. And I bet James didn't keep very good records of those lies. A knock at the door made us both freeze. Maria checked the security camera we'd installed. It was Michael Chen, our former CFO, looking nervous. I heard rumors, he said when we let him in. That you were awake, that something big was coming. He looked at me. I saved copies of everything, Diana. All the financial records from before he pushed me out. I smiled. Tell me, Michael, did James follow proper procedures when he transferred the company assets? Michael's answering grin was vicious. Not even close. I've got proof of at least 3 major violations of SEC regulations. Been keeping them safe, waiting for this moment. The pieces were falling into place. Over the next 2 days, more former employees reached out. Each had saved evidence, each had witnessed James's betrayal, and each was eager to help take him down. But our biggest ally came from an unexpected source. Ms. Mitchell. The voice on the phone was elderly, dignified. This is Margaret Bennett, James's mother. I sat up straighter. Margaret Bennett was a legend in biotech circles, though she'd retired years ago. I've been watching what my son did to you, she continued. It's despicable. His father and I taught him better than this. A pause. I have documents you might find interesting. Board meeting minutes that contradict James's version of events. Why help me? I had to ask. Because I believe in what you and James originally set out to do, she replied. Making treatments accessible, not just profitable. He's lost his way. Perhaps it's time for a reminder of what matters. The morning before the board meeting, I stood in front of the mirror in my hotel suite, practicing standing without showing weakness. My body was still recovering, but I couldn't let them see that. Maria burst in, waving her phone. You need to see this. James just sent a press release to the major news outlets. He's announcing Bennett Pharmaceuticals' complete acquisition of Artemis Biotech, claiming you've signed off on everything. Perfect, I smiled. He's just made this much easier. How? Because announcing an acquisition based on fraudulent documents, that's not just a contract violation, that's securities fraud. We spent the final hours preparing everything. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence carefully organized. The thumb drive's contents backed up in multiple secure locations. At 6 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from James himself. Heard you checked out of the hospital. Hope you're feeling better. The paperwork for your share transfer is ready whenever you're up for it. I showed Maria the message. Should I respond? She grinned. No need. He'll be seeing you soon enough. That night, I could barely sleep, my mind racing with what was to come. I remembered all the late nights James and I had spent in the lab, dreaming of how our treatment would help people. How had he gone from that idealistic researcher to someone who would betray everything we built? At dawn, I received another unexpected call, this time from Robert Morgan of the Morgan Group, our biggest investor. Just wanted you to know, he said without preamble, we never believed you'd voluntarily walk away. We've been waiting, watching. Tomorrow's board meeting should be interesting. I smiled. You have no idea. Maria arrived early, carrying a garment bag. If we're going to war, we're doing it in style. Inside was a perfectly tailored black suit that made me look less like a recovering patient and more like an avenging CEO. My phone kept buzzing with messages from other employees, investors, even competitors who had heard rumors of my return. Each one added another piece to the puzzle of James's betrayal, another witness to his lies. At 8 a.m., Maria's associate confirmed that James had arrived at the office, looking confident and relaxed as he prepared for what he thought would be a routine board meeting. He just sent out the agenda, the associate reported. First item: finalizing the acquisition and your removal from all corporate documents. I checked my appearance one final time. The woman in the mirror looked powerful, unstoppable. No trace of the hospital patient remained. Ready? Maria asked, holding up the thumb drive that would destroy James's carefully constructed house of lies. I took it, feeling its weight, not just physical, but moral. This small piece of technology contained not just recordings, but the truth about betrayal, about corruption, about the difference between power and right. "The car's waiting," Maria said. "Everyone's in position." I nodded, thinking of James sitting in that boardroom, probably rehearsing how he would announce my official removal from the company we had built together. He had no idea what was coming. "Let's go," I said, stepping toward the door. "It's time to remind James why you should never betray someone who keeps receipts." The drive to Artemis Biotech's headquarters felt surreal. Every familiar landmark brought back memories of building this company, of the dreams we'd had, of the trust James had shattered. But I wasn't going there to reminisce. I was going there to take back what was mine. The elevator ride to the 12th floor of Artemis Biotech felt like ascending to destiny. Standing beside me, Maria clutched her briefcase containing enough evidence to destroy James's carefully constructed lies. Behind us, Sarah Wong and Michael Chen waited silently, each carrying their own documented proof of James's betrayal. "He's just started the meeting," Maria's associate texted, announcing the final phase of the acquisition. Perfect timing. The boardroom doors were closed, but through the glass walls I could see James standing at the head of the table, gesturing confidently as he presented his version of events. The board members sat around the massive oak table, some nodding, others looking uncertain. "Ready?" Maria whispered. I straightened my jacket, feeling the thumb drive hanging from its chain around my neck. "Oh yes." I pushed open the doors. The reaction was immediate. James's voice cut off mid-sentence. His face, previously animated with fake sincerity, froze in an expression I'll never forget. Pure, unadulterated shock melting into fear. "Deanna," he stammered, "you're supposed to be in a coma? Dead, or just conveniently absent while you steal my company?" My voice carried clearly across the suddenly silent room. "Sorry to disappoint, James." Board members half rose from their chairs. Robert Morgan, our lead investor, actually smiled. "Ladies and gentlemen," I continued, walking steadily to the center of the room, "I believe there are some details about this acquisition that James forgot to mention. This meeting is private." James tried to recover. "You're no longer." Actually, Maria stepped forward. "Ms. Mitchell very much is still an owner of this company. The documents claiming otherwise were fraudulently filed." "Ridiculous," James scoffed, but his face had gone pale. "We have her resignation, her transfer of shares." "Forged," I cut him off, while I was unconscious. "But then that was the plan all along, wasn't it?" I nodded to Michael, who began distributing packets to each board member. "These are the real financial records, showing unauthorized transfers and multiple violations of SEC regulations. And these," Sarah added, passing out her own documents, "show the changes made to our treatment protocols. Changes that would make the therapy unaffordable for most patients, violating our core mission and FDA approval parameters." James's face had gone from pale to ashen. "The board approved." "The board was lied to," I interrupted again. "You told them I had agreed to sell before my medical emergency. But I have proof that's not true." I unclasped the necklace and held up the thumb drive. "Would you like to hear our last conversation, James? The one where you suggested selling to your father's company and I explicitly refused. Or should we skip to the part where you discussed my convenient medical crisis before it happened?" His eyes fixed on the thumb drive with horror. You recorded." "Everything," I finished. "Every meeting, every conversation. I have it you used to mock, remember? Called me paranoid for documenting everything." The board members were flipping through the packets, murmuring among themselves. Robert Morgan looked up sharply at James. "Is this true?" he demanded. "Did you orchestrate this takeover knowing Ms. Mitchell had refused?" I was protecting the company's interests," James tried. "The delays in FDA approval were normal and expected." I cut in. "As you well knew, what wasn't normal was you contacting doctors about aneurysm statistics weeks before I collapsed." That revelation sent a shockwave through the room. James actually staggered back. "You have no proof." I nodded to Maria, who opened her laptop. James' own voice filled the room. "Yes, doctor, I'm particularly interested in stress-induced aneurysms. Someone about 40, female, under extreme work pressure. The recording cut off into dead silence. Would you like to hear the rest? I asked quietly, or should we move on to the evidence of securities fraud from this morning's press release? This is absurd, James sputtered. You can't just walk in here and... Actually, she can. A new voice spoke from the doorway. Margaret Bennett, James's mother, stepped into the room. And as a major shareholder in Bennett Pharmaceuticals, I'm very interested in hearing about my son's creative business practices. James actually stumbled. Mother, what are you doing? What I should have done months ago, she cut him off. Stopping you from destroying everything your father and I built. The next hour was a blur of revelations. Every piece of evidence was examined, every lie exposed. James tried several times to defend himself, but each attempt was met with another document, another recording, another witness to his betrayal. Finally, Robert Morgan stood up. I believe we've seen enough. I moved to nullify all transfers and acquisitions made during Ms. Mitchell's incapacity, and to remove James Bennett from any position of authority in Artemis Biotech. The vote was unanimous. You can't do this, James whispered, but there was no force behind it anymore. The company needs to return to its original mission, I said firmly, making life-saving treatments accessible to everyone, not just those who can afford premium prices. Margaret stepped forward. Bennett Pharmaceuticals will be withdrawing all claims to Artemis Biotech, and James, she fixed her son with a steel gaze. The family board would like to speak with you. Immediately. As James was led out, looking shell-shocked and defeated, Sarah approached with more documents. The FDA approval came through this morning. The original protocols, not the modified ones. We can proceed as planned. I looked around the boardroom, at the supporters who had helped me fight back, at the board members who now understood the truth, at the company I had nearly lost but have fought to reclaim. Ms. Mitchell, Robert Morgan approached. The board would like to officially reinstate you as CEO, with full control over company direction, assuming you're well enough. I smiled, thinking of all those hours in the hospital planning this moment. Oh, I'm well enough. We have a lot of work to do. In the weeks that followed, the story of James' attempted takeover became a cautionary tale in business circles. Bennett Pharmaceuticals distanced themselves completely, with Margaret Bennett taking a personal interest in ensuring their company ethics were reformed. James, stripped of his positions in both companies, was last seen booking a flight to some remote destination. The SEC investigation into his activities was just beginning. Artemis Biotech not only survived but thrived. Our treatment received full approval, and under the original pricing structure, it would help thousands who couldn't afford existing options. One afternoon, as I sat in my restored office, Sarah brought in a package that had been found in James's desk. Inside was my original badge, the one declaring me co-founder and CEO. You know what the irony is? She said as I pinned it back on. If he had just waited, if he had stuck to our mission instead of getting greedy, he would have been part of something amazing. Sometimes people can't see past their own ambition, I replied. But that's why we keep records, to remind everyone of the truth. I touched the thumb drive, now mounted in a frame on my wall alongside a news article about our FDA approval. It served as a reminder that sometimes the best defense isn't just being right, it's being able to prove it. Maria stopped by later with a final report. All legal challenges had been dismissed, our patents were secure, and James' attempts to claim any ownership had been permanently blocked. Want to know the best part? She grinned. Every time he tries to start a new venture, potential investors find the records of what he did here. Turns out, trying to steal a company from your partner while she's in a coma is bad for your business reputation. I looked out my office window at the Seattle skyline, thinking of all the patients who would now have access to our treatment. The company wasn't just saved, it was stronger, more focused on its mission than ever. You know, Maria mused, most people would have just fought to get their shares back. But you did more. You exposed the whole scheme, protected the mission, saved the science. Because it was never just about ownership, I replied. It was about doing what's right. And now everyone knows exactly how far some people will go to do what's wrong. That evening, as I prepared to leave, I passed the research lab where James and I had first developed our breakthrough. The lights were on, and through the glass, I could see Sarah and her team working late, dedicated to the mission we'd started years ago. I touched the frame holding the thumb drive one last time. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing a betrayal. It's showing everyone that the truth always finds a way to surface. James had tried to bury me, not realizing that I had planted seeds of truth that would grow into his downfall. He thought my medical crisis was his opportunity, never suspecting that his own words would be his undoing. The company flourished, the treatment helped thousands, and the story of how careful documentation defeated corporate greed became a legend in the biotech world. And every time someone new toured our offices, they would see that framed thumb drive and learn the most important lesson in business. Never betray someone who keeps records of everything, especially when they're fighting to protect something bigger than themselves. David, you can't live in the basement forever, my mother sighed, setting down her fork at our weekly family dinner. You're 32 years old. When are you going to get a real job? I pushed the mashed potatoes around my plate, avoiding her eyes. Across the table, my sister Amanda smirked. She was wearing a new designer blazer, probably bought with her latest bonus as a senior investment banker. Leave him alone, Mom, she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. Not everyone can be successful. Someone has to deliver our packages and fix our computers. My name is David Mitchell, and for the past 7 years, my family had watched me cycle through a series of what they called dead-end jobs. It's support, delivery driving, handyman work. What they didn't know was that each of those jobs was carefully chosen to help me build something they couldn't imagine. At least fix up the basement, my father chimed in, not looking up from his phone. It looks like some kind of command center with all those computers. What are you doing down there anyway, playing video games? If he had bothered to really look at those computers, he might have noticed they were high-end servers running complex algorithms. If he had paid attention to the delivery driving I did, he might have wondered why I chose such specific routes through industrial areas. If anyone had actually asked about my IT support work, they might have realized I was selectively building relationships with key players in the tech industry. But they never asked. They were too busy being embarrassed by their basement-dwelling son. I'm working on some projects, I said quietly, the same answer I'd given for years. Projects, Amanda snorted. Like that ridiculous idea you tried to pitch to my firm 3 years ago. What was it? Some kind of AI for supply chain management? I remembered that day clearly. I had thought, naively, that my sister might actually help. Instead, she had laughed me out of her office, telling me to get realistic and apply for an entry-level position like everyone else. What Amanda didn't know was that her rejection had been a blessing. It had taught me an important lesson. The people closest to you are often the least likely to see your potential. After dinner, I returned to my command center in the basement. The space that my family mocked was actually the nerve center of what would soon become one of the most revolutionary logistics companies in the world. Those odd jobs they ridiculed, each one had been strategically chosen to understand different aspects of the supply chain industry. Delivery driving had shown me inefficiencies in last-mile logistics. Its support had given me access to see how major companies handled their inventory. Handyman work at warehouses had let me observe industrial operations up close. All of it fed into NEXUS, the AI-driven logistics platform I had been building in secret. The same platform that major venture capital firms were now quietly fighting to invest in, though they knew me only by my company's name, Mitchell Dynamics. My laptop pinged with a new email from Catherine Santos, the lead partner at Quantum Ventures. David, final term sheet attached. $50 million for 8% equity values the company at $625 million pre-money. Ready to move forward when you are. Still hoping to meet in person soon. I smiled, thinking of my sister's corner office at her investment bank. Catherine's firm managed 100 times more capital, and she had no idea she was dealing with the basement dweller her colleague had laughed at. Another message popped up, this one from Marcus Webb, my chief technology officer and the only person who knew the full truth about my situation. Daily active users hit 100,000. Major retailers starting to notice the efficiency gains. When are you going to tell your family? I typed back, soon. Everything needs to be perfect first. Perfect meant the upcoming public offering we had been quietly preparing for. Perfect meant proving beyond any doubt that the waste of potential my family saw was actually building something revolutionary. My phone buzzed, Mom texting to remind me about tomorrow's dinner. Another weekly ritual of subtle jabs and disappointed looks. 7 years of them telling me to grow up, get a real job, be more like Amanda. I glanced at the terminal showing NEX US's current metrics. 100,000 plus active users, $50 million annual recurring revenue, 98.7% customer retention. Operations in 12 countries, all built from a basement, funded initially by dead-end jobs and credit cards, grown through careful strategy and deliberate anonymity. The company's PR team had crafted a careful mystique around the founder, releasing no photos, using only my first initial in communications. A notification flashed on my screen. Another major retailer signing up for a pilot program. They had no idea their potential salvation was being run from a suburban basement by someone whose family thought he was a failure. I pulled up the IPO documentation we'd been preparing. The numbers were staggering. Projected valuation between $1.08 and $2.2 billion. My ownership stake, carefully preserved through each funding round, would be worth nearly $1 billion. My father's words from dinner echoed in my head. When are you going to do something with your life? Soon, Dad, very soon. Upstairs, I heard Amanda's designer heels clicking across the floor as she prepared to leave. She had brought over brochures for coding boot camps, her latest attempt to help me find direction. If she had ever actually looked at the code running on my screens, she would have seen one of the most sophisticated AI systems ever developed for logistics. But she saw what she wanted to see, a loser brother who needed saving. I turned back to my work, reviewing the final details for tomorrow's major announcement. After 7 years of building in secret, everything was about to change. My phone buzzed again. A text from Marcus. CNBC confirmed. They want to run the story during prime time tomorrow. You ready for this? I looked around at my basement command center, thinking of all the nights I'd spent here while my family slept above, convinced I was wasting my life. Every dismissive comment, every condescending suggestion, every pitying look had only fueled my determination. Ready, I typed back. Time to rewrite the family narrative. Tomorrow, the carefully constructed wall between my two lives would come down. Tomorrow they would learn that their basement-dwelling disappointment had built an empire right under their noses. But tonight, I had work to do, because that's what they never understood. Success doesn't announce itself until it's inevitable. Sometimes the biggest empires are built in the quietest places by the people everyone else has written off. I turned back to my screens, smiling as I heard Amanda's car pull away. In less than 24 hours, she would be seeing my name scroll across the same financial news channels she watched religiously. And finally, after 7 years of silence, I would have something to say at family dinner. The morning everything changed, I woke up early in my basement apartment and dressed differently than usual. Instead of my typical worn jeans and t-shirt, I put on a tailored charcoal suit that cost more than Amanda's monthly mortgage payment. The same suit I had quietly delivered to a P.O. box, away from my family's prying eyes. At 9:00 a.m. sharp, my phone lit up with a message from Catherine at Quantum Ventures. Everything's set. CNBC running the story at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You ready to become a billionaire? I glanced at my watch. In less than 2 hours, my family's perception of their basement-dwelling failure would be shattered forever. Upstairs, I could hear my mother in the kitchen, probably shaking her head at the fact that I still wasn't up and working, like a responsible adult. If she only knew I'd been up since 5 a.m., finalizing details for one of the biggest tech IPO announcements of the year. My phone buzzed again. Marcus this time. Trading floor is buzzing with rumors. Your sister's bank just issued a strong buy recommendation for our IPO. She has no idea she just endorsed her brother's company. I smiled at the irony. Amanda had spent years telling me I didn't understand business or finance. Now her firm was falling over itself to get a piece of what I built. At 10:15 a.m., I made my way upstairs. Mom was indeed in the kitchen, sorting through bills. Finally up. She asked without looking up. There's a job fair at the community college today. I left a flyer on the counter. Thanks, Mom, I said quietly. But I have some meetings today. She sighed that familiar sigh. More computer repair jobs? Something like that. I poured a cup of coffee and settled at the kitchen table, positioning my tablet so I could see the CNBC feed while pretending to read the newspaper. Mom puttered around, probably wondering why I was dressed in a suit for computer repair. At 10:29 a.m., my phone started buzzing continuously. Messages from investors, board members, and reporters all counting down to the announcement. I silenced it just as the CNBC anchor appeared on screen. Breaking news in the tech sector, the anchor began. In what's being called the stealth success story of the year, logistics AI company Mitchell Dynamics has filed for an initial public offering, with an estimated valuation of $2 billion. I heard my mother's coffee cup clatter against the counter. Mitchell Dynamics, she whispered. Like our Mitchell? Led by founder and CEO David Mitchell, who developed the revolutionary NEXUS platform. The anchor continued as my photo appeared on screen, a professional headshot taken weeks ago in secret. Mom's face went pale. She gripped the counter for support, staring at the TV in disbelief. David, she barely whispered. Is that you? I stood up, straightening my suit jacket. Yes, Mom, that's me. But you've been in the basement, doing odd jobs. I've been building a company, I corrected gently. Those odd jobs were research, every delivery route, every aid repair, every warehouse visit. All of it helped me understand the problems I was solving. Her legs seemed to give out, and she sank into a chair. On a TV, the anchor was still talking. Revolutionary AI-driven logistics system already used by major retailers across 12 countries. My phone buzzed again. Amanda this time. I put it on speaker. David. She practically screamed. Why is your face on every screen in the trading floor? What's going on? Remember that ridiculous AI logistics idea you laughed at 3 years ago? I asked calmly, the one you said would never work. Silence on the other end. Your firm just issued a strong buy recommendation for it. I continued, though I suppose you weren't copied on that memo. I heard commotion in the background of her call, probably the trading floor going crazy as the stock price was announced. This is impossible, she breathed. You live in Mom's basement. Not for much longer, I replied. Though it was an excellent place to build a billion-dollar company, no one looks too closely at the failure in the basement. Mom was still staring at the TV, where they were now showing graphics of NEXUS's growth metrics. All those computers downstairs, she murmured. Servers, I corrected, running one of the most advanced AI systems in the logistics industry. My phone buzzed again. Dad this time. Son, we need to talk. I'm coming home early. The next hour was surreal. Amanda arrived first, still in her trading floor outfit, mascara smeared from what looked like tears. Why didn't you tell me? She demanded. I could have helped. Like you helped when I brought you the initial idea? I asked quietly, when you told me to get realistic and apply for an entry-level position. She flinched. I didn't know. No one knew, I said. That was the point. You all saw what you expected to see. A failure, a disappointment, someone who couldn't get his life together. None of you ever actually asked what I was building. Dad burst in next, his tie askew. David, my office is going crazy. My own son. Why didn't you say anything? I turned to face him directly. Would you have believed me? Or would you have tried to help by telling me to be more practical, get a real job, be more like Amanda? The silence that followed was deafening. My tablet pinged with an update. Mitchell Dynamics stock was up 200% in pre-market trading. My personal net worth had just crossed $1.5 billion. 7 years, I said into the silence. 7 years of lectures at dinner. 7 years of being the family embarrassment. 7 years of you all telling me to get my life together. Did none of you ever wonder why I didn't seem worried? Mom was still clutching her coffee cup, staring at the financial channels where my face kept appearing alongside words like tech visionary and revolutionary platform. But the delivery driving, the computer repairs, she stammered. Market research, I explained. Every delivery route showed me problems in logistics systems. Every computer repair job gave me access to see how companies handled inventory. I saw the inefficiencies, the gaps, the opportunities everyone else missed. Amanda had sunk onto the couch, her designer outfit wrinkled. The banking software we use, the new logistics system, that's yours. I nodded. Your firm pays us $2 million a year for it. I believe you called it revolutionary in last month's team meeting. She put her head in her hands. Oh God. My phone buzzed again. Catherine from Quantum Ventures. Media wants a statement from the family. Your call on how to handle it. I looked at my shell-shocked family, my mother still gripping her coffee cup, my father looking like his world had turned upside down, Amanda seemingly aging years in minutes. Take your time processing this, I said, gathering my tablet. I have a company to run. Oh, and Mom, you can keep the job fair flyer. I'm good. As I walked toward the door, Dad finally found his voice. Son, wait. I turned back. Yes. We were wrong, he said simply. So very wrong. Yes, I agreed. You were. And now everyone knows it. I stepped out into the sunlight, my phone already buzzing with more congratulations and media requests. Behind me, through the window, I could see my family frozen in place, watching financial channels announce their basement-dwelling disappointment as the next tech billionaire. Sometimes success is the best revenge, but sometimes success is just the beginning of a much bigger story. 6 months after the day my family discovered their basement-dwelling disappointment was actually a tech billionaire, I sat in my new office on the top floor of the Mitchell Dynamics headquarters in downtown Seattle. The wall of windows offered a stunning view of the city skyline, a far cry from my basement command center, though I sometimes miss the quiet focus of that underground space. The morning's Wall Street Journal lay open on my desk. Mitchell Dynamics revolutionizes global logistics, stock up 400% since IPO. Below the headline was a photo of me in this very office, looking nothing like the failure my family had bemoaned for 7 years. My phone buzzed. Amanda, for the 3rd time this week. Lunch today. Please? We need to talk. I've been avoiding these conversations, focusing instead on running my company. The transition from secret genius to public figure had been challenging enough without dealing with family dynamics. But perhaps it was time. Fine. I texted back. 1 p.m. My office. At precisely 1 p.m., Amanda stepped out of my private elevator, looking uncomfortable in a way I'd never seen before. Gone was the smug confidence she'd always worn like armor. Her designer clothes, once a symbol of her superiority, now seemed like an attempt to belong in a world where her little brother was worth more than every partner in her firm combined. Nice office, she said, trying for casual and failing. Different from the basement. The basement served its purpose, I replied, gesturing to one of the leather chairs facing my desk. Though I doubt you're here to discuss my real estate choices. She sat, fidgeting with her watch, a nervous habit I'd never seen in her before. David, I've been trying to find a way to apologize. For which part? I asked calmly. Laughing me out of your office? The years of condescension. The coding bootcamp brochures. She flinched. All of it. I was so sure I knew better, that my path was the only path to success. I never imagined. That's the problem, I interrupted. None of you imagined. None of you even tried to understand what I was building. You saw what you expected to see. The thing is, she continued, my firm is desperate to get me to arrange a meeting with you. They want to handle Mitchell Dynamics' investment banking needs. The same people who wouldn't give you 5 minutes 3 years ago now spend hours strategizing how to get your attention. I couldn't help but smile at the irony. And how does that make you feel, Amanda? Having to court your basement-dwelling brother's business? She looked down at her hands. Humbled. Embarrassed. But mostly sad that I missed the chance to be part of something amazing because I was too arrogant to see it. A notification popped up on my screen. Our eye had just landed another major client, a Fortune 500 retailer. Their CEO had probably spent more time researching my background than my own family ever had. You know what the hardest part was? I asked, turning back to Amanda. Not the long nights coding, not the stress of building something revolutionary. It was sitting at those family dinners, week after week, being treated like a cautionary tale when I knew what I was creating. Why did you tell us? She whispered. Would you have believed me? Or would you have tried to fix my life, interfere with my plans, insist I do things the right way like you? She had no answer for that. My phone buzzed. Mom this time. Sunday dinner? Please come. Dad's finally ready to talk. I showed the message to Amanda. They still don't get it, do they? They think everything can go back to normal, just with their formerly disappointing son now being successful. They're trying, Amanda said softly. We all are. It's just you've completely appended everything we thought we knew. About you, about success. About everything. I stood and walked to the windows, looking out at the city where my company was transforming how business worked. You know what success taught me? That the people who are quickest to judge are often the ones who understand the least. Just then, Marcus knocked and entered with a tablet. Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this. The Wilson contract just came through. It's bigger than we expected. I glanced at the numbers and smiled. Another billion-dollar deal, larger than Amanda's entire investment bank would see this year. Thank you, Marcus, I said. Oh, and this is my sister Amanda. She used to tell me to get realistic about my career goals. Marcus, who knew the whole story, tried to hide his smirk. Interesting. I guess building a revolutionary AI platform wasn't realistic enough. Amanda had the grace to blush. After Marcus left, I turned back to my sister. Here's the thing about success, Amanda. It doesn't erase the past. Those 7 years of condescension, of being treated like a failure, they happened. The fact that I'm now a billionaire doesn't change how you all made me feel. I know, she said quietly, but can we try to build something new? A real relationship without the judgment? I considered her words. That depends. Are you here as a sister trying to reconnect, or as an investment banker trying to land a client? A sister, she said firmly. Though I won't pretend my firm isn't desperate to work with you. But that's not why I'm here. My phone buzzed again. Dad this time. Son, I sold my company today. The one I always wanted you to join, remember. Funny thing is, the buyers are implementing your logistics system. My life's work is being transformed by the son I thought was wasting his potential. I showed the message to Amanda. See what I mean? Everything's different now, but they're still seeing it through the lens of their own expectations and failures. Then help us see it differently, she pleaded. Help us understand. I sat back down at my desk, thinking of all the family dinners, all the disappointed looks, all the well-meaning but condescending advice. Here's what's going to happen, I said finally. I'm coming to Sunday dinner, but not to pretend everything's fine, not to be the successful son they can finally brag about. I'm coming to tell the whole story, every detail of what I built while you all thought I was failing. And you're all going to listen. Amanda nodded. That's fair. And one more thing, I added. Next week, I'm giving a speech at MIT about entrepreneurship and innovation. You're all invited. I think it's time you understood exactly what was happening in that basement. That Sunday, I walked into my parents' house wearing the same suit I'd worn the day of the IPO announcement. Mom had prepared all my favorite foods, a transparent attempt at reconciliation. Dad stood awkwardly by the fireplace, next to a framed Wall Street Journal article about Mitchell Dynamics. We're proud of you, son, he said stiffly. Now you are, I replied. But this isn't about pride, Dad. It's about understanding. Over dinner, I told them everything. The real purpose of each dead-end job, the strategic relationships I built, the careful development of NEXUS. With each revelation, their expressions shifted from pride to shame as they realized how completely they had misjudged me. All those times we pushed you to get a real job, Mom said, tears in her eyes, you were actually building something revolutionary. The basement wasn't my failure, I explained. It was my incubator. Every time you looked down on me, it just proved I was right to keep it secret. Amanda, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. How did we fix this? How did we become a real family again? I looked around the table at their expectant faces. We start by acknowledging that success doesn't always look like what you expect. And we remember that judgment without understanding is just prejudice with a familiar face. 1 year after the IPO, I stood on stage at MIT, delivering that promised speech about innovation and entrepreneurship. My family sat in the front row, finally hearing the full story of what their basement failure had built. Success isn't about meeting others' expectations, I told the packed auditorium. Sometimes it's about having the courage to disappoint the right people for the right reasons. Looking at my family, I saw something I'd never seen before. Not pride, not shame, but understanding. They finally saw me not as the failure who made good, but as the visionary who had been there all along. After the speech, Dad approached me with tears in his eyes. I spent years trying to make you follow my path, he said. I never imagined you were blazing a trail I couldn't even see. That's the thing about innovation, Dad, I replied. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't follow the expected path. It just changes everything, usually from the most unexpected places, like a basement everyone looked down on. Today, Mitchell Dynamics continues to transform global logistics, and I still keep a small desk in that basement. A reminder that greatness can grow anywhere, even in the spaces others dismiss. As for my family, we're building something new based not on expectations or appearances, but on understanding and respect. Sometimes the biggest innovations aren't in technology, but in how we see each other. And every now and then, when I hear someone talk about overnight success or lucky breaks, I think about those 7 years in the basement being judged by the people who should have believed in me most. Success wasn't the revenge, understanding was.